So I'm sitting in a local fast food restaurant with my son. Just about anybody who knows my family at all well knows exactly what restaurant it is. And we're eating breakfast, which is what we normally do on a given Sunday morning. And my son takes a little bit too big a bite. In fact, it was the last bite of the breakfast sandwich that he was eating. And he gets to a point where he decides he wants to spit the sandwich out. And I tell him, no, I want for you to continue chewing on that bite. Chew and chew and chew and chew, and then swallow a little bit, not all of it, and just keep swallowing a little bit, and before you know it, the sandwich will be out of your mouth. This is a perfect example of the sort of thing that I see happening a lot in American society, particularly where politics is concerned, but really where anything is concerned, and what made me want to talk about recent political trends, which seems like an odd thing, but you'll see how I tie that in just a second. I am going to talk about recent political trends here on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday, the 7th of November of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. And the subject again today is going to be political trends. Let me go ahead and get through my notes so that you can get some idea exactly what it is that I'm talking about. I'm not saying I don't believe things may be moving in better directions as time goes by, and I mean that politically primarily, but in certain other senses as well. I think it's likely people can't really avoid seeing the problems occurring as a result of policies that are anything but successful. I hope people have come to realize the success of the previous National Executive Administration's direction. I know it can be argued, if you want to try to besmirch that administration, that things started to fall apart at the beginning of the COVID situation, which was the time of the end of that regime. Here's the reality. If we were to have another such crisis today, we may not be doomed, but we sure would be in for hard times. We already have enough of a problem with just the policies in place and play at the moment. On top of everything else, we're continuing draconian policies for an illness that, where serious, the policies are obviously not working. Imagine a serious crisis occurring. Well, honestly, you don't have to, because the tenor of the current administration is such that we're helping to make Russia richer, and China appears to be seriously considering, quote, repatriating, end of quote, the folks in Taiwan who ran as quickly as possible from the horrible politics and policies of mainland China. If something more happens, like China actually invades Taiwan, or Iran or North Korea decides to accelerate their nuclear program and actually decides to use those arms created as a result, I can't imagine things not becoming substantially worse even now. All that said, the reality is, things we've seen where more conservative politicians seem to be winning in unlikely places seem to be pointing to change. The problem is this. We didn't win in New Jersey, regardless how close it was. And where a, quote, Republican, end of quote, won in the Virginia gubernatorial election, it's hard to argue he's anything like a staunch conservative. Even with this being true, what we're seeing may bode well for the rest of the country. My perspective is to not assume that's the case. To my way of looking at the world, those who would like to see more right-leaning folks taking control at various levels would do quite well to be highly skeptical as to what has happened and what it signals for the future. Let me put this another way. It seems to be, I'm not sure what I intended to say there, so let me kind of hash through it. It seems to me it would be far too easy for folks trending toward the right to assume the folks they'd like to see in office have won and will continue to do so and become complacent. My point? If you want to see conservative policy win the day, you'd better make sure, if you're a voter or a person who talks about this stuff, you're ready to vote for or otherwise support such folks and get others to do likewise where possible. It's simple. Even if things appear to be moving in good directions, we cannot rest on what has happened. We must continue to accentuate the success of what conservatives have accomplished and are accomplishing, and continue to urge folks to move in good directions as well as doing so ourselves. Am I saying recent political trends have not been, quote, good, end of quote? No. I'm simply saying we can't stop now. We must continue to push forward in good directions. Failure to do so will very likely result in disaster. We're surely already rapidly headed to the edge of the cliff, and we seem to be speeding up as we go. There's this idea, and it is the short game versus the long game. And you'll hear people, for example, who talk about your retirement account. And they'll say that there are a lot of people who, when they look at stocks and similar risky things in their retirement accounts, whenever anything bad happens, they'll suddenly ditch the stock stuff that they're holding, and they'll move towards doing things that seem safer and more stable. But what they point out is, if you look over the course of time, stocks will outperform. And to be clear, I'm not giving financial advice. You should talk to your financial advisors and see if they agree with what I'm saying. But they say that stocks will almost always outperform any other vehicle in the long run. Now, there have been exceptions to this, and I'm not saying otherwise. That 1929 stock market crash comes to mind. But here's the point. As a rule, regardless what actually wins in your mind, it should not be a result of short gains or a short game, but of the long game. This is what you should be interested in. This is what you should be concerning yourself over. And the point is this. That means that when you're supporting people for political office and you get the one guy in that you thought would be really good, you need to understand that that's not enough. That's not enough. When you talk up this person who's a really good person, if you're not a voter or whatever, that's not enough. You must continue to accentuate the positive in terms of what happens with conservative policy. This is just how that has to be. And look, I'm not asking you to do anything that I consider to be immoral or otherwise wrong. Does conservative policy work or doesn't it? If it does, support it full-throatedly. Put your whole person behind it. If liberal policy wins the day, works well, does right, then support it. My opinion is that you will not find that to be true for liberal policy. What sounds good is not what works. What actually works is stuff that isn't, quote, sexy, as Drew Berquist likes to say about making local sexy, which, by the way, I agree with him on. I'm not disagreeing with that idea. I'm saying a lot of the time, the problem is that the things that we're looking at and talking about are not things that people look at and go, ooh, that's really wonderful. Oh, that's so exciting and so forth. They're not doing that. And I need for you to understand the importance of accentuating those things and making it very, very clear to people, whether you look at that and go, oh, that's sexy. Whether you go, think about it and go, oh, that's really interesting and captivating. Whether you do that or not, you need to support those things, because if you don't, things that look pretty, look shiny, right, in lots of people's eyes, will be the things that will win the day. And if you don't take the time to sit down and explain to them, look, I know socialism sounds good, but the problem is you vest a huge amount of power into the hands of a group of people who are not going to want to give it up. And by the way, they're going to want to make sure that it looks like they need to stay in power to continue to make things look good, and they're going to do that. They're going to stay in power, and they're going to push people to act like that's the appropriate thing to do. So the point is, maybe it sounds good to you, but really, in terms of the long game, what you got to do is you've got to take the time to talk about those things that where they're not, quote, sexy or whatever you want to call it, not exciting, not captivating, not all that interesting. Those things are the things you must support if they're the right things to do. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Sunday, the beginning of the Christian week. The 7th of November of 2021, got a little bit of upset stomach today. Tomorrow then will be Monday, the 8th of November of 2021. That'll be the beginning of that work week for so many people. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Again, welcome. Obviously, if you're just coming on, I hope that's not the case. And remember that you can rewind the video if you are. Remember that Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a boxing glove or a plus sign on Rumble if you want to give me positive feedback. You can give me a minus sign on Rumble if you want to give me negative feedback. You can give me a thumbs up or a like on YouTube for a positive, telling me good things about my video. And you can give me a thumbs down or a dislike on YouTube to tell me that you weren't all that happy with it. The subject for today has been recent political trends, and tomorrow we're going to talk about an interesting subject that various people have brought up, and I want to kind of continue the discussion on this a little bit from what I've heard particularly Dan Bongino say, and that concept is investigating nothing. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you. Let's hope that your week this week is a good week, and hopefully we will see you again on Monday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Sunday the 7th of November of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.